Come back to Aetheral Space, you'll notice that there was no outro last time because Darnell was too excited.
Yeah, sorry. I was so excited to keep reading, so let me give my thoughts. Last chapter, 1.115, was my favorite so far, and I also retroactively say bye.
Hi,
so sorry about
welcome
that.
back.
I got really excited and got off the recording. No, this one I see as a return to 6-page chapters, which is a little sad, because on one hand I want more to read, but on the plus side, at least I won't kill my throat as
These
much.
are very dense chapters. This is a very dense chapter. These are some big paragraphs.
Okay, that's fair. I literally have no clue. I feel like you said you're already working on Arc 2. I feel like Arc 2 is going to be like the split point, whether Dragon went with Musashi or with them. I have no clue. Oh, I'm so fucking excited.
Well, let's get into it.
Ruth! Skipper roared. He grabbed Blaine by the sleeve and pulled her to the side out of the way of Musashi's blow, and at the same time he sent one of those concussive blasts flying towards the swordsman with a pointed finger.
He stopped doing the finger guns here, just something to note. He's not doing the finger gun, it's too serious.
He's being serious. Dragon saw the telltale rippling of the air, the concussive blasts being fired. Musashi saw it too, and in the moment before it hit him, he instead went flying backwards. Those jets of aether reappeared, now on the front of his body, moving him out of the way of Skipper's attack, and propelling him backwards towards the car he'd come in on. The two thugs the hyena had brought with him shouted in response as the special officer came flying towards them, and sent blasts of plasma fire in the hopes of intercepting him before he got too close. A decision brought about by panic, with no clear strategy that Dragon could see. It was no use. Musashi didn't use the thrusters this time. Instead, he twisted his body. Oh, I could literally visualize this. The hip turn, with the sword. He twisted his body in the air, moving just enough that the bolts of plasma brushed past him, burning into the walls and ceiling instead. In the same movement, he slashed out with his sword twice, and the two thugs fell to the floor in 2 pieces each, painting the carpet red where they came down. Musashi himself landed on his feet on the Lord Mayor's desk. Raquel cowered on the floor beneath him, hands covering his face. "No problem!" he screamed. "No problem!" "Be silent," said Musashi. "It's unsightly." His gaze shifted back to Blaine, but Dragon couldn't help but shiver as it moved over him. It was like having the eyes of death upon you. Oh, it's so anime, I love it. Musashi continued, "If you surrender now, I will not kill you. I give you my promise there. But if you resist me, at all, I will have your head." Skipper pushed Dragon behind him and tried to do the same with Blaine, but she stood firm. "You can't beat him," hissed Skipper. "You know you can't. Let me handle this." Blaine shook her head. "You're worse off than me. You're missing an arm and you've still got those drugs in you. He'd kill you easy." "He'll kill you easy." She glanced at him. "Both of us then?" Oh, is he about to fucking sacrifice himself? And then they have to figure out what his fucking plan was? Skipper's firm expression shifted into an easy grin. "Sounds like a plan," he said before flicking his eyes to look at Dragon. "Best take some cover, Mr. Hadrian. If things go bad here, well, thanks for the jailbreak." Dragon opened his mouth to let out some sarcastic retort, but none came. Instead, what came out was very different. "Oh my god, hold on. Sorry, I read ahead. I got surprised." "No problem," he said quietly. Thanks for saving me. It cost you an arm, so, I appreciate it, I guess." The words didn't come naturally to his lips. They felt heavy and cumbersome. Skipper blinked, surprised, then smiled softly. "No problem, kiddo."
Oh, Jesus Christ, don't do that.
Blaine grinned with what was obviously more confidence than she felt, and stood tall, balled fists at her hips. "Sorry, special officer," she said, pouring as much disdain into the title as it would hold. If this book was true to life, if this had really happened, in the time before she finished that sentence, he already would have cut her head off. That's how strong Musashi is. I want a fucking Musashi versus Goku video essay. "You gave me the same speech last time, and I didn't like it much then either. Stop flapping your gums about how bad you're gonna kill me and do it, coward." The tension in the room grew 10 times as thick, the very air seeming to freeze in place as Musashi's calm expression shifted to one of murderous fury. "Coward!" he muttered, as if trying to confirm to herself that she'd really... To himself, right?
Oh, yes.
That she'd really dared to call him that. He took a deep breath, shifted his stance just slightly. "I see," he said, rage barely restrained by a calm exterior. "Die, then." He launched himself off the desk, but instead of charging directly at the group as he had previously, he leapt directly upwards towards the ceiling. As Dragon ran off to the side to find cover as he'd been advised, he furrowed his brow in confusion. That move didn't make sense. Dangling from the ceiling offered no advantage whatsoever, unless it was a distraction for something else. Dragon opened his mouth to say something, to maybe shout a warning, but it was too late. The Lord Mayor's desk went flying towards where Skipper and Blaine were waiting to counter Musazi's attack. White aether jets protruded from the back of the object as it hurtled through the air. Oh, he, is fucking remote controlling
Yeah, you can do it remotely.
That's so cool. And Skipper spotted it just in time, sending one of his concussive blasts into it and utterly demolishing the piece of furniture, which exploded into a cloud of wood and dust and debris. He's gonna fucking come through the smoke. That was when Musazi began his attack. Taking advantage of the reduced visibility, the special officer landed with his white sword in hand between Skipper and Blaine. He slashed at Blaine's neck, clearly intending to punish her for the earlier insult, but she ducked at the very last moment, and the strike only shaved away a few stray red hairs. At the same time as his attack on Blaine, Musazi kicked backwards at Skipper's torso with an aether-infused leg. Skipper's arm lashed out, leaf-green aether flowing weakly across it, and grabbed Musazi's boot-clad foot, shaking as he struggled to keep a grip at his weakened state. A split second later, Skipper let go with a grunt of pain, and Dragon saw why from his position in the corner. An additional jet of aether had burst out from the side of Musazi's foot, exactly where Skipper had been gripping it, so those things definitely produced heat too. Musazi didn't miss the opportunity provided by Skipper staggering backwards. The swordsman whirled upon Blaine again, bringing his sword up for an overhead blow, and as the sword came down, Blaine blocked it with an oddly shaped glittering thing that Dragon couldn't quite make out until he squinted. It was a large shard of glass from the broken window that Blaine had forced her red aether into, enhancing it to such a degree that it could serve as a temporary shield. The thing wouldn't survive a second blow, though, judging from the spiderweb of cracks spreading across its surface. But Blaine knew that. As Musazi lifted his sword for another attack, she grinned and cut the flow of aether to her makeshift shield, and then she punched it, sending her enhanced fist into the glass with such force that it shattered outwards, sending tiny shards of glass flying directly into Musazi's face. The swordsman squeezed his eyes shut to protect them from the glass, stepped back to get out of the range of Blaine's next attack, but it was too late. One of Skipper's blasts slammed directly into Musazi's back, sending him flying forward. I assume that should be him.
Oh. Yes.
Past Blaine and into the wall. Right here, yeah. As he landed, Musazi transitioned into a roll, and at the same time as he finally stopped, he hurled his glowing sword at Blaine and Skipper. A jet of aether roared from the back of the sword's hilt, propelling it so fast that it seemed more like a line of pure bright light than a physical object. The blade speared past Blaine's arm, gouging it deep and sending spatters of blood down to the floor. A second later, the thruster on the sword's hilt disappeared, and a new thruster appeared on the tip of the blade, propelling the weapon back towards its owner. Blaine didn't miss her chance, though. In the moments before the sword returned to Musazi, she charged in towards him, slashing at him with her skeletal claws. Musazi blocked the first swipe with an aether-infused elbow, but the second, aimed lower, got him, cutting him deep in the leg. As Musazi continued to block further blows, his mobility now impaired, the sword he'd been waiting to catch zoomed past him and lodged itself into the wall. Dragon shook his head, came back to himself. For a few minutes now, he'd been utterly enthralled by the battle in front of him. He doubted he would have noticed if that sword had cut through him during its trip around the room. He could say what he wanted about Ruth Blaine, but she was clearly a fighting genius. A toy Musazi, too. As the fight continued to rage, Dragon kept low and made his way across the room to where Raquel was cowering. No matter what happened here, he had to operate on the assumption that they would need their hostage, that this would work. "No problem," mewed Raquel, still in the fetal position on the ground, amid the ruins of his office. "I'll call! No problem." Dragon reached out, grabbed the bastard by the hair, and pulled him out, ignoring the yelp of pain the politician let out. He could make whatever noises he'd liked. He'd try to get Dragon killed. He put the barrel of his gun against Raquel's head, and the man stopped thrashing. "Don't move," Dragon hissed in his ear. "Oh no!" Then he heard the voice of a toy Musazi, dangerously close. "I wouldn't recommend that, Dragon Hadrian." "I'm dead!" It was a terrible, nauseating certainty, and as the thought crossed his mind, his heartbeat seemed to increase in force, shaking his whole body as if making the most of what little time it had left. He looked up, eyes wide, mouth gaping. Musazi was standing over him, towering with sword again in hand, so menacing that it felt as if he could crush Dragon with his shadow. Cold gray eyes looked down, and hot white remnants of aether sparked around his back. Clearly he'd used those jets to disengage from fighting Blaine and Skipper when he'd noticed what Dragon was doing. Dragon tried to come up with something, some defense, but nothing came. Words couldn't come so long as that white sword was so uncomfortably close. Why didn't he just team with Musazi? He could see the blood on it. "Dragon Hadrian," Musazi said, smiling softly, ignoring his attempt at a response. "Please don't worry. I know you are no traitor. Simply wait for me to dispatch these criminals, and I'll help you get this whole matter cleared up. Agreed?" Oh.
Well, the reason, because he didn't know that Musazi knew he was innocent.
Right. A sense of sick relief came to Dragon, and an involuntary grin spread across his face. He wouldn't be killed. Musashi wouldn't kill him. It was as if a noose had been untied from around his neck. "Excuse me a moment," said Musashi, and then he trained in a flurry...
That's returned.
He turned in a flurry of movement, using his sword to block a series of blows from a suddenly appearing Blaine. She screamed in anger as she kept trying, claws coming down again and again from every possible angle. Dragon looked past her, back towards the entrance, and saw the cause of Blaine's fury. Skipper was slumped down next to the hole in the wall they'd come in from, clutching his side. Vivid red blood oozed between his fingers. Stab wound. The exchange went on. Musashi continued to block her attacks, his movements becoming faster and faster, even as Blaine grew more weary. She would lose. It was obvious. She was operating on pure rage, strategy abandoned, and the pool of adrenaline she was drawing from was starting to run dry. This is where it gets critical. Is Dragon gonna help or not? Grunting from the exertion, Musashi batted away another of Blaine's swipes, and, using the split-second opening that provided, he brought his sword up, clearly about to bring it down on his opponent's head. Just as it had on the ship where they had first met, Blaine's skeletal mask dissipated in the red aether and was replaced by the seamless white helmet, the one that had sent Musashi flying. The swordsman smiled. Dragon's heart dropped. It was just what Musashi had expected. What he'd wanted. This was his chance for a killing blow. Musashi changed his stance in a second, and now his blow was coming in from the side towards Blaine's side. Okay. Rather than down onto her head. The sword flared with light, all of Musashi's aether flowing into it at once. It was like a supernova in motion. I don't know, the phrasing of Blaine's side, from the side, Blaine's side is a little weird.
Torso, I'll say.
Yes. After aether flowing into all at once, it was like a supernova in motion. Blaine was wide open. She'd be cut in half. Dragon heard a soft gasp from beneath her helmet. A sharp bang rang out. Musashi staggered forward, sword slipping from his fingers and clattering to the floor. His limbs were stiff, his movements awkward. Something was preventing him from moving his joints. It was a wonder he was even still standing. Someone had shot him, Dragon realized. Someone had shot a toy Musashi. Is this fucking JoJo Part 7? But who? He looked down at his hand, at the pistol held there. No! Yo! Smoke drifted up out of the barrel, and crackling blue aether orbited it! His eyes widened. No, he couldn't have! Fucking Dragon starts saying, no problem. Dragon stared down in muted horror at his stupid, treacherous hands. He had saved Ruth Blaine. Dragon, the waifu isn't worth it. Bro!
Musashi's like, no, don't look at her.
She is temporary, Dragon. The supremacy is forever. Oh, no! I mean, I'm happy about it. I half expected it to happen, but oh my god. Oh! Musashi, so you've chosen death. Dude, imagine if he had literally any backup. He's been doing all these group fights alone.
I know.
He would be invincible.
All his backup wants to betray him.
I know, it's so sad. The supremacy is fucked up. Oh,
Dragon
I need the next chapter now, Tan.
Dragon executes his signature move of shooting people in the back.
Tan, I literally need to inject the next chapters into my vein right now. It's like heroin.
I do enjoy the fact that Dragon's signature move is shoot you in the back while you're doing something else.
Yeah, because his aether sucks dick. That's all he can do. Oh man! Oh no!
It's a secret technique.
To be fair, I would do this to the Foundation if they were about to kill Cassie. That would be my move to junior researcher. So you've chosen death.
That face, that feeling when you do a good thing without meaning to.
Oh,
you got anything to say?
Wow, that was good. Oh wow, I need more. I need to know what happens.
Okay.
Tan, how about a crumb of spoiler?
Maybe. We'll see you next time.
Crumb of spoiler?